lovely. I ain't looking back, I'm focused on what's in front of me. Everybody dates a number, but I'm still here luckily. I know that God got me, so I'm in good company. Isn't it lovely?
Welcome, 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 and thank you for joining me once again. I am Professor Bear, and this is A Bear's Thought. And today's episode is sponsored once again by Chops Trading Cards and Print On. So, do you want your own trading card for all the indie wrestlers, promoters? This is the place to go. And because you know Professor Bear is going to hook you up with 15% off your entire purchase. Just put in Bear 15 and bam, you got it. Again, Chops Trading Cards and Print On, the number one for your trading cards. Today, I am blessed and humbled to have this guest on. He has done so much in the industry, but on top of what he's just been doing recently, as of Sunday, he just became the Eastern Tennessee heavyweight champion. My guest, Evan Golden. Mr. Golden, how the hell are you, sir?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing what I do best and staying on the road and staying busy, man. I got a new token to the collection, two-time champion, if I don't say so myself, and I figured I'd bring it onto the program and show everybody what it's all about, you know.
Yes, sir. Oh, man. And one thing about it, right off the bat, it's such a lovely title. I love that design.
Oh, it's gorgeous, man. You know, it's one of the prettiest titles I've actually ever seen, and you'd never believe that it's a little over 20 years old. There's been a lot of blood spilled on this guy right here. I can tell you.
Wow, now that's something that the professor did not know. The title was that old. All right.
It's old, but it looks good for its age, you know?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. So we're going to start off by talking. Well, my first question is, I know, but my fans may not know. How did you get into the business?
Yeah, so I kind of have a unique entry into the wrestling business, and that I was born in this industry, and that's kind of flabbergasts some people. Some people might not, understand what that's like, and I guess I had no choice. I feel like my earliest memory of my whole life is wrestling. I think quite possibly the earliest thing I can remember is watching my dad wrestle. Yeah, basically, I'm a second generation wrestler, and I've been around wrestling my whole life. And when you see your old man, who's your hero, wrestle over and over again, it eventually makes you want to go in there and give it a try. And that's exactly what I've been up to recently. And it's been a journey and a blessing of a journey too. And I've seen you at the shows too. I've been able to make new friends like you, and it's been awesome.
Man, thank you for that. Let's talk about, if you don't care, let's talk about your famous uncle.
Oh yeah, you can't. Yeah, we got to bring up Bunkhouse Buck. He's a tough guy, man. He's my uncle, but I wish I was as tall and as strong as he is. I'll tell you that much.
Now, a lot of people know him as Bunkhouse Buck, but I know him as Jimmy Golden.
There we go. Yeah, real ones know him as Jimmy. I tell you.
Exactly. And on top of that, your cousin, Robert Fuller.
Yeah, man. I tell you what, I couldn't have asked for a better lineage in this business, man. It's kind of funny because I've grown up around it. It's my whole life, but I never really realized how amazing it is until I talk to other people, and they're like, man, that's crazy. But that's who I grew up around, and they're the people who've made me who I am today, and I couldn't be more fortunate, man. It's awesome.
and that speaks to your psychology in the ring. As
Yeah.
such a young wrestler, you wrestle as a veteran, and it's
Thank
so
you.
easy to watch and get so in, encumbered with your style of wrestling that, of course, for myself, being an older wrestling fan, I enjoy, and I love the way you mix your style and just when you want people to dislike you, you are disliked. When you
Yeah,
want people to love you, you are loved. And that is so that speaks so much on your family and just getting the knowledge. Um, do you what would you say to a wrestler who just starting in the business that is not blessed like you to have family in the business? What would you tell them would be their first step to becoming a great wrestler?
Yeah, so I think for someone who started completely fresh that wants to give it a go at wrestling, I think one of the best things that you can do is watch as much wrestling as you can. I think one of the best memories that I have growing up is watching all of my favorite, shows and matches, but kind of not just watching them, but studying them and kind of picking things apart. There was actually a point I would start to like slow things down, Well, this is back in the old days when we had DVDs and such, which, but I would be able to rewind and, watch things over again. So, it's always good to do your homework and, watch wrestlers that you would want to wrestle like and almost emulate what they're doing, and it also it always helps too to stand out, maybe try to look a little different than other people. One piece of advice that I always love is if everybody else is doing the same thing, you do the complete opposite. And I feel like that always works for people. If everybody else is going a million miles per hour, you go slow, and vice versa. I think that's a very wise piece of advice that if someone was first starting out, I would maybe throw that at them. That's a if you really think about it, that's a good piece of advice. Like, oh, just try to be different.
Yeah, definitely. With because it helps you stand out, it helps you create something different that maybe a lot of people have never thought about. So definitely
Yeah.
great advice. Great advice. So let's talk about that winning match on Sunday.
We got to talk about it. I tell you.
So tell me, going into the match, did you already have in your mind, I'm taking that baby home again?
Oh, of course. I 1,000%. I actually went into this match thinking if I don't get this now, I may never get to again. I've had a couple more chances at this title, and I was going up against Jamie Myra Jr. For those who are watching and aren't familiar with Jamie Myra, he's a fantastic athlete. He looks like $1 million. But he just doesn't know how to stay golden, and that's exactly what happened on the program. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to take anything away from this guy. He was a great athlete, and he really took me to the limit in the ring. But I'm telling you, I told myself I'm going in here and I'm leaving with this over my shoulder. For one, I knew I couldn't come on this show without this over my shoulder. I was like, I've got to bring this on the Professor Bear podcast. And then the second thing I was thinking is, this title is a part of my family history, and I almost felt like I had a responsibility to kind of just win it back and bring it home. So, but it was definitely a brutal match and can be seen on Smoky Mountain Pro on YouTube. So,
Wow, it
yeah.
is. I hadn't got a chance to watch the full match. I did get to see bits and pieces, and the first thing that came to my mind when you won, I was like, "Holy crap! He's gonna bring the title with him! Hell yeah!"
Yeah, I did. There's some places if you win a championship, they're like, hey, you got to keep it here or keep it locked up. And I was like, oh God, I threw this in the car and brought it straight up to the show. I'm telling you, I was like, I'm bringing this on the program.
So with being said, being the new champion, what are some of your other goals?
Well, I think one of the biggest goals that I have in wrestling right now, and I don't know if this sounds selfish or not, Bear, but to be completely honest, I kind of want to win more championships. I've kind of got a little streak going on right now. I'm also the holder of the Beside the Ring championship. Now we've got the East Tennessee title right here. I'm going after the East Tennessee tags soon, and I feel like there's something wrong with adding tokens to adding, making the bag a little heavier, I guess is the phrase that they say these days. I want to make my bag heavy, and I think that that's something that I want to do. For example, this weekend I've got a big match with Luke Fury. That'll be for the HWA Mid Atlantic Championship. If I could win that, that would just be another piece of prestige to carry around with me. The only problem when your bag gets heavy like this is it's hard to travel all over the place when you've got all this gold in it. But to me, that's a good problem to have, and I think that's definitely part of my goals is to just keep collecting titles as much as I can, because I feel like if you could just go to any promotion and win gold, that's a good sign of it, and it shows you where you are talent wise. And like I said, some people might think it's hard to reach, but I think it can be done, and it all starts with this one right here. So we'll see what happens, man.
So it's not being selfish. If you're getting in this business not to win championships, what in the hell are you doing in this business, really?
I know. Yeah. Well, it's funny. When I first started, I tried to be like that guy that was like, oh, I just want to have a match, just see how it goes. No, that lasted like a week. As soon as I got going, I was like, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to collect championships. I'm ready to, bring them on shows like this to show you, and just, and also, there's something special about being a champion, and that, now when I go out and compete at Smoky Mountain Pro, for example, people kind of have to, put themselves up in other gear. They look at you differently, they wrestle you differently, and I like it, man. I like being the person who has the title around their waist. And like you said, there's people that would rather not, but I'm not that guy, let me tell you.
Well, and that's the thing too, honestly. In today's wrestling, belt collecting is standard. I mean, let's be real. If winning a title is a great accomplishment,
yeah,
and not to disparage or talk bad about anyone, but anyone can do that.
Mm-hmm.
But when you win multiple titles and carry them at the same time, that speaks to who you are as a competitor, as an athlete, and that shows you goals. And I love that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being humble, but there's also nothing to the opposite of wanting to be greedy and to be the man or the woman to be on top of the business. I mean, again, and on top of that, for you, it's your legacy. How many times have your family won gold all over the Southeast? I mean, we would be here for days if we went into all of that.
Yeah. If we can extend our podcast to 48 hours or so, I think maybe we can get through the list. But that's a really good insight on wrestling, Barry. There are people that are like, oh, I want a championship, and that's great. Winning a championship is great, and it means something. But to me, if you can win multiple, it means you're on another level. And most importantly, my favorite part is it means you get to travel more. If I have 3 or 4 championships, that means I get to take them all over the place and meet new people to wrestle that can, try to challenge me for it. When I announced that I'd won this on Facebook, I had like 4 or 5 comments saying, Evan, I want a shot at that title, and they're people I'd never even met before. And I was like, oh wow, this, now I'm gonna have new competitors for the year, and it's that's the kind of thing that makes you a better wrestler, is when you wrestle tons of different people with different styles. And I feel like when you're multi-champion, I think that makes it easier for you. And that says that's definitely why that's gonna continue to be my goal for the year. And this has already been an awesome summer. So
And it's just beginning.
yeah.
And on top of that, another thing that I don't think a lot of people think about is
Mm.
when you are a multi-champion, that speaks into the faith that the company has for you, because a lot of companies don't want you carrying a couple of different titles because
Mhm.
they want, either one, they don't believe in you, or they're afraid you will get hurt, or a lot of different reasons. But again, it speaks so highly of you and for the athlete you are. Again, we've met uh, a couple of times, and man, I've just been amazed of your ring work, and not just for your family history either. Um, you as a person, you stick out. You are so well rounded, and I love that. And I love, of course, the fact that you are so proud of your family history, and you get to do, and we get to talk about it. So it speaks so highly of you as a person, and that's why I really wanted you on the show, and appreciate that you are
Oh,
here.
of course, man. Thank you. For what I just want to say, it's an absolute pleasure to be here on the show with you. And obviously, they call you the professor for a reason. You know what you're talking about. And, dare I say genius? But I don't like to throw that around too often. And also, it means the world to me that you enjoy my work, what I've been doing. Sometimes as wrestlers, we have days where we're like, are we really doing a good job? And when we get to talk to people that are like, hey, no, I like what you're doing, it makes my day, and I appreciate the kind words, and it puts a pep in my step.
Oh man, and if we, and like, you need another pep in your step, the way you just rip in the summer and it hadn't even got started good yet.
It's gonna be a big one, man. I'm so excited. Matter of fact, I just got back from Pittsburgh for the TNA Impact tapings. They needed somebody to do some security work around there, and who better than Evan Golden? Steve Macklin's a big guy, but Evan Golden's bigger, and that's why they gave me the call. And so tune into TNA Plus tomorrow, and you'll see me on the show keeping people in check. And so that's another thing that happened that I was like, oh man, that is not on my bingo card for the year. But that's just what happens, when you get out there and and you branch out. It's so many cool things can happen. And yeah, I was thinking about that earlier. I was like, I can't believe I was a security guy TNA a couple of weeks ago. That was that was something. So
But again, that gets you a foot in the door, and that obviously they're watching you, so that
yeah.
speaks highly to you. Again, I don't want to sound like the Boy Scout that just keep hyping you up, but it's so hard not to, because you're really just a tremendous worker, and it's really, out of a lot of work I've seen you do, uh, I honestly cannot say I've seen a bad match with you, and
Man,
that's
no, thank you, man. That's a huge compliment. A lot of wrestlers I know, they're like, oh, that wasn't a good match there. Oh, I had an off night, and I always try to do 100% every time, all the time, And to hear you notice that I've been doing that means the world. And yeah, and it's always good to see you at the shows too. And matter of fact, I think I saw you possibly. Gosh, I've seen you a few times, but I thought I saw you at JCP.
yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
there he was. I had a feeling that was you. Yeah, I always try to go to the territory shows if they'll have me, and I thought that's where I saw you. That's
yes,
cool.
sir. Um, I not to toot my own horn, but between JCP, Crossfire, and School of Morton slash Smoky Mountain Pro, I would say my home bases that I love going to. My wife loves going to. We just enjoy everybody, and it feels like family to me. And everybody's just really great, and just very humble and nice. And I love the vibe. It, even if I wasn't a wrestling fan,
Yeah.
I get caught up sometimes where I'm not even watching matches. I'm watching the fans and how much they're enjoying it, and the kids are, and the family. And man, that brings so much memories to me and my family. And I enjoy that. And I want everybody to experience that. That's why I always promote, I say indie wrestling. I'm starting to try to say professional wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
It's more professional wrestling out there than just, and no knock against the big companies, but man, I always think you have so much better times, and it's more affordable and family friendly to local shows. I
Uh,
mean,
yeah, local shows are great, man. I spent basically my whole life around the independent wrestling shows, and there's just something about it, and I think that's what the NWA is trying to do there with the territory shows, is kind of give that same vibe back on a bigger scale. But and that's like you said, some of the best wrestling you could watch today is Crossfire, Joe Kazana Promotions, and it's also where you can find yours truly, but that's here nor there. But the territory shows are great, but there's nothing better than a good old high school gym and some good wrestling, cheap wrestling that's easy to bring the family to. I think that's one of the best parts about wrestling too, is you could easily introduce it to new people by taking them to the indie shows. It's because it is professional wrestling, but sometimes when you go to the smaller scale places, it's easier to just have a good night, you know what I mean?
oh, definitely, definitely. Um, and that's where I'm trying to continue my tour of different indie promotions to get the feel. And I guess one of the things that for me really blows my mind. Yes, definitely. Wildfire Championship Wrestling is a great one. One thing that blows my mind is me going to different places and people recognizing me. That is, it blows my mind, and it's like, wow, I'm just here to enjoy the show, and it's like, no, we know you like professional wrestling. You promote the indies. We
No,
love.
they know what you're doing there. They know better than that. And that's great, man. It's good that you're covering a lot of ground, and that's the that's basically the best thing you can do, is just go and watch as much wrestling as possible. It is kind of funny too, because they all are sort of different. You can go to one show and then there's another down the road that doesn't almost feel like the other one, but it's fun. It's a fun way to experience wrestling and watch it. So you're definitely doing it the right way.
Oh yeah, I truly think so, and definitely with my company WSN, we're definitely trying to promote it as much as possible, get it out there, and let people understand that wrestling is alive and well.
It is alive and well, and that's kind of one of the reasons I was thinking about earlier. I was like, when we were talking about me winning a bunch of championships, that's one of the best parts. Not only is it like it's great to go to all these wrestling shows, but when you're actually, for example, I could be at a show and I'm defending this championship, but then I could go to a whole other state and defend it at another spot. And it's like a whole different experience. It's almost the same thing as a wrestler to like go to all these different shows and kind of feel the difference between one or the other. There's some that are definitely better than others, but I'm the sort of the mindset of I'll wrestle anywhere as long as I maybe get to have a title shot, defend this, for example. I'll take this all over the globe if I have to.
And that's great because it puts more eye, and you see the champions like, wow, he's representing. I want to see what he's representing, and that again, that speaks to you your character as you as a person, and again, your family history. And again, I love it because again, I'm a big wrestling historian, so I know how far back your lineage goes in the business. And just
Yeah.
to continue seeing it go so well and going to the next level, I'm almost as proud as if I was your family member.
Man, that means the world to me, man. I could tell that you feel that way for me, and it means a lot because and it's funny too that there's always something special about generational wrestlers, but there have been some that don't do so good. And when I first started, I was a little worried about that. I was like, I could be the guy that basically ruins everything, but that's okay, because I've found that I quite enjoy wrestling and I love doing it, and it's definitely it flows through my veins. There's some generational wrestlers, I think they think they have to, but they don't really want to, and then it just kind of goes off the rails. So I'm glad that I'm doing the family a good deed by continuing the legacy on, and making you proud, and making everybody who watches wrestling that knows anything there's to know about the Goldens proud, because and I think the coolest part is that, like, kind of teaching people, on the latest episode that I was on of NWA JCP, even on commentary, Dangerous Dan was like, "Yo, isn't he related to Jimmy Golden? I'm not sure." And old Danny Deals was like, "Oh, he is." So it's kind of cool to see people like get introduced to my turn at wrestling.
Oh yeah, definitely. And like you said too, and for the people who not knowing, it gives them a chance to go back and look at, oh wow, okay, now I understand why he's like that. It's his family. So
Yeah.
it brings wrestling into a big circle that I love, because if you're a big wrestling fan like me, you know the circle and you enjoy it. If you're someone who never watched wrestling, now you get to learn and you get to know and you get to learn you as an individual, but then understand, oh wow, I can look back and see that his family does it and did it and everything. So it keeps the tradition alive.
It
And
does. It's one of the funniest things that happened to me probably ever in wrestling is I had a match where you were saying earlier, Bear, how if people hate me, they're gonna hate me. This is one of those nights where nobody liked Evan Golden, and they were very upset with me, and I had no problem with that. But anyways, I was all up in the ref's face. I was getting a little handsy. I was like shoving him a little bit and getting in his face, and he shoved me back. So I guess this referee had some cojones, but I won't say his name and give him any credit. But anyways, what happened was is after the match, he came up to me and was like, "I just found out that you're related to the Goldens, and now everything makes total sense about why you were treating me that way." And I was like, "Well, I mean, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. But in good examples and more lighthearted examples, I've had younger fans become a fan of me, and then they'll come to another show and be like, "Hey, we just found your dad on YouTube. Can we have his autograph?" And my dad's just sitting there like, "What? Why do they want mine?" And I'm like, "Well, because they found you. And that's the beauty of wrestling, though. You can be a new fan and start watching today, and next thing you know, you're watching something from 30 years ago.
definitely 40 years in the ring, I can do something until I can't. Love the young guys coming up and helping when I can. Man, see that, and that's the great thing about it, because it's I would say it like this: when the
Yeah.
younger wrestlers will sit down and listen
Hmm.
and learn, it helps keep the sport alive more than just, and understanding there's more than just flips involved to get your
Right.
spot in. It's actually a sweet science to learn the ins and out, to learn, like you said, you go into different territories and stuff, and you get to learn how to work different crowds and work
Mhm.
more than what your standard match is, and that helps you build yourself up.
Yeah, that's man, that's a beautiful insight for sure because everywhere is different. There's different crowds, different territories, and all of them are different. And I think the way you said it earlier was really good too. The phrase you used, I think, was well-rounded. I like the idea of being a well-rounded wrestler. But like you said, that can't happen unless you listen to the people that came before you. I've had my schooling from a ton of people that my dad grew up with and in the business that are now helping me. All these guys I used to see when I was a kid, now they're all in their 50s telling me what to do. And I'm like, well, this is strange. I used to watch you guys when I was a kid, and now you're telling me how to be better at wrestling. And I love it because, that's what molds you into being a good wrestler and like you said, well-rounded. I think that's a really good way to put it, is a well-rounded wrestler for sure.
And I guess too, me being a old school wrestling fan,
Yeah.
um, because that's how I seen so many people come up and do great things. One of the greatest champions of all time, Ric Flair. He could
Yeah.
go into any territory, and yes, he wrestled a certain style, but he could change it, and people didn't understand the dues that he paid to learn how to become the nature boy, because you just don't learn that and just automatically do that. You have to learn and pay your dues.
Yeah, this is a very, very hard business to learn. It takes a long time to learn this business too. I think some people think they could just, graduate at like college real quick and then know everything there is to know. And the fact of the matter is, well, even my old man, he's 51 and he says he's still learning to this day about wrestling, what you need to do to be a good wrestler. And if legends and veterans and guys are still learning to this day, then I guess it's safe to say you're never really done learning. And I know you know about it. Yeah, you're the professor, and but yeah, it's a crazy industry to wrap around, but it's a fun one too. Especially like I've always liked going to new places. One of the funniest things that happened to me is I went to this promotion that it was more. I noticed it was more lucha style, and I'm over here still trying to learn Southern style, and I was like, well, okay, I think I might have to pull out a little aerial moves here, and but I'm kind of glad that I had to do that because it pushed me to be better.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. So now I know this is a loaded question, but I have to ask it. What is your favorite match of all time that does not have you or a family member in it?
Oh man, that's a good question. There's a lot of matches that I enjoy, but to say my favorite match of all time, like the number one favorite, like my favorite match ever. Ooh, let me think, because I think I have an answer. Really make sure I'm not leaving anything else out. Um, I'm a really big fan of well, matter of fact, we were just talking about him. I'm a big fan of the match from Fall Brawl '95, Ric Flair versus Arn Anderson.
Oh,
And there's a few things about it. That match, for one, not only was like just the perfect match. I could watch it over and over, but it has such a good build up, and also it takes place in the Asheville Civic Center, which is 10 minutes down the road from here. Because I'm born and raised in Asheville and have lived here my whole life, and so when I was growing up and watching this match, thinking, hey, this happened in my town, and it just so happens to be the perfect match. Like, that's crazy. That's like someone's favorite match just happening down the road 30 years ago. It's kind of hard to believe. And my dad always showed me that match too. I remember he would have it on VHS and be like, just watch this match. And so now it's one of those, there's so many different styles of wrestling, and that one's definitely an old school style match. But no matter what, I love it. I watch that back every so often just to watch it, just because it's kind of one of those, like, if anybody hasn't seen it, like, obviously it's a Ric Flair match, but it's kind of different. Like, I don't know if it's the way they built it up. Obviously, it's the, him versus Arn Anderson, which is a huge deal, but it was like the perfect build up, the perfect match. And I was even thinking about when I graduated from college here in Asheville, but we had our graduation ceremony in the Asheville Civic Center. And the whole
Oh,
time I was just thinking, man, I'm walking the stage where my favorite match happened. It's so cool. I was like, what?
man, so it's amazing. And I know we have a lot in common, but
Oh,
it's amazing that you said that match in particular. I know that match inside and out
yeah, me
because it's one of
too.
my favorite matches also. Like you said, the build up, the one of the best things of that for me was listening to Arn Anderson do his promo
Yeah,
because
man, and that's a special promo because he name drops Asheville, and when I just remember hearing that thinking like, this is crazy. Like, what am I watching? And then it was just the perfect match, and I know you know all about it. I can tell you've seen it. There's some people I mentioned it to them, they're like, I don't think I've seen that one because that's, well, I think it was like 1995 or so. I mean, I wasn't even born. But I love it.
it it is when Brian Pillman became heel, and it was the setup of the Horsemen again
Yeah.
to backstab Sting. Again, I know this match. It is a classic, and probably the two things that stand out to me about that whole thing was the Arn Anderson promo, because you could tell it was coming from a place of genuine feelings.
Yeah.
He said that he was sick before the promo. He threw up before and after the promo. And
Wow.
you know that it really had to mean something to get that type of feeling for him. And it was one of the rare times that Flair and Anderson faced off against each other. And a lot of people don't know, because Arn Anderson is one of my favorite wrestlers of all
Oh
time.
yeah. Oh yeah.
He has beaten Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan. Not too many
That's
people can
crazy.
say.
People need to be talking about that more. That's a huge deal.
Yes, yes. So yes, I definitely know that match. Man, one day we're gonna have to sit down and watch that match together.
I know it. I know, buddy, because I'm telling you, it's like I could watch all these matches that are, new school and Japanese, and I study everything I can, lucha. But man, that's a timeless match. I feel like I could show that match to anybody, and they would be like, that was awesome. And that's what you want. It's always good if you could try to get new fans from a match. Just like, hey, you've never seen wrestling, you just watch this match, and then next thing you know, they're a big fan. And WCW at that point in time, it had its ups and downs, but that was a point that I really enjoyed watching it, and just watching back old tapes. But that's definitely probably if I had to say my all-time favorite match, I can't think of one that I like better than that one. And I love tons of matches, but if I think that's my number one pick. So
Uh, if I always say this, and again, I watch tons of wrestling, so a
yeah.
lot of times I have to think, but my number one match of all time, there's no ifs, ands, or but, Tully Blanchard versus Magnum TA in the I
Oh,
Quit match for the United States Championship.
I know that's a great match. I definitely had my schooling on that match. I was probably subjected to that match before I even knew who was in the ring. It was just on the TV. Yeah, we like Tully Blanchard in my family. He's our kind of player in the ring. There's nothing wrong with a little cheating here and there. You know that, Barry. It's just you got to bend the rules here and
Oh
then.
yeah,
And
you ain't if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
Exactly. It's the way I see it. You're either going to win or lose. And if you have to pull some strings to do so, yeah, it's okay. Actually, just at the Pittsburgh show I was telling you about for TNA, I got to introduce myself to Tessa Blanchard, and you can tell that she's going to be the exact same way. And obviously, she's a great talent, but she might just be scratching the surface with playing a little dirty in the ring. I mean, the Blanchards, they'll bend the rules like no other, and but that's what you've got to do here and then. So
And one little covenant to Tussa, that she's a third generation wrestler, and a lot of people don't know this, but her stepfather is actually Magnum TA.
people
That
people don't think
ironic?
about that. I always forget about that too here and then I'm like, oh, of course.
That is one of the most ironic things I found. That's like, holy crap.
That's like that's a rare example. That's like if Tully Blanchard was my stepdad. I'd be like, wait, what? Okay.
Exactly. So, in 5 years, where do I see Evan Golden in the wrestling business?
Well, I think in 5 years, for one, in 5 years, I'm still going to be coming back here on the show because there's going to be a lot going on in 5 years' time, and you just know I'm going to want to come on here and tell you about it. But I think one thing in 5 years' time that I want to be able to do is to be able to be seen nationally on either TV. I mean, you can already see me all over the world on the internet, but I think in 5 years' time, it'll be high time to see Evan Golden on TV. You know what I mean? And things are going in the right track. The work that I'm going to be doing this year with TNA Wrestling could eventually end up leading to a match, which makes me so excited because that's just something that would have been on my bingo card when I was 5 years old, but you never really think things like that could happen. But as they start to take shape, you're like, wow, this is really happening. So that's exciting. And I would like to say that in 5 years, you might be able to see me on that programming more often, wrestling. And also, in 5 years' time, I hope to still have anything to do with the NWA and what they're doing with the territory shows. And obviously, that'll help me get to see you again in person, pal, at the NWA Crossfire Joe Kazana Promotions. But yeah, there's a lot to be done. And in 5 years, I just hope that I'm still, becoming a good wrestler. And I guess what I'm saying is I hope in 5 years I could be seen by an even broader audience. I think that would be really cool.
Yes, love it. So, before we end the program, are there any shout outs to anyone you would like to give out your socials? Just be the champion that you are and talk about it, my friend.
Don't mind if I do. Let me tell you, everybody can find me on social media, Evan Golden. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. That's where I usually post where everything's gonna be. I'm so busy wrestling. I've always got to make sure that I also post about like where I'm gonna be so everybody can be there. You don't want to go on the road and nobody be in the crowd. So if anybody wants to see what Evan Golden's up to, just check out my Facebook, Instagram. I'm on X as well, but I mainly use Facebook and Instagram, and that's where everybody can see where I'm gonna be and new pictures and stuff like that. And I'm also selling new merch. Now that I've won the title, you can go to prowrestlingtees.com and go to Evan Golden. I'm gonna be making new shirts to celebrate the title change, and I'm excited to sell those out to people, and we can spread the golden word that way. So, yeah, Pro Wrestling Tees, Evan Golden, you will definitely enjoy what we have coming out for merch.
Man, I love it, and I love the golden word. That sounds like That sounds like a podcast to me. I'm just saying.
Hey, I might have to start one now. Now that I think about it, don't give me any ideas, or I'm going to be live tomorrow.
Man, Evan, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for, man, doing what you do. As a wrestling fan, I enjoy it. I thank you so much for all the hard work you put in, and you make sure that I get my money's worth when I see you. I really appreciate it, sir.
No, man, I appreciate you saying that. Like I said, that's made my whole week, and those are words I'll carry with me, my friend. So thank you for saying those things. And as always, it's been an absolute pleasure to be here on the show, and I would definitely love to come back sometime soon for sure.
Oh, definitely. You have an open invitation. You let me know and we'll work it out, my friend.
Sweet. Thank you, Bear. I really appreciate it. And for everyone that tuned in, thank you guys for watching. We got a new champ on the horizon, and this is the perfect place to celebrate with Professor Bear. So
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. And before I end it, I'm obligated to mention that next week I am going into the Kentucky Professional Legacy Hall of Fame.
oh man, there we go, man. Nice.
I am very honored and blown away from it. And if I didn't mention it, my producer would put me in a headlock, and that
You
hurt.
gotta mention it, and you deserve it too, man.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So, guys, thank you again for joining me for another Bear's Thought. And we'll be back in the force very soon. So, thank you once again. It's Professor Bear of Bear's Thought.